Nobody thinks about the cooks. When people talk about the Navy in World War II, they talk about pilots and gunners and the brave men who fought the enemy. They don't talk about the guys in the galley sweating over stoves in 120-degree heat, trying to feed 800 hungry sailors 3 times a day. But I was there, and I can tell you, an Army marches on its stomach. So does a Navy. Petty Officer 3rd Class Ernest Williams, ship's cook aboard the USS Independence, a light aircraft carrier that served in the Pacific from 1943 to 1945. Black man from Louisiana who'd been cooking since I was 10 years old, helping my mama in our restaurant in New Orleans. Navy didn't care about my cooking skills when I enlisted, wanted to make me a steward. That's what they did with black sailors back then. Stewards, serving officers, cleaning their quarters. But I could cook, really cook. And when the regular ship's cook got appendicitis 2 weeks after we shipped out, somebody remembered I'd worked in restaurants, threw me in the galley with a few other guys and said, "Feed the crew." So I did, for 2 years straight, 3 meals a day, every day, whether we were in combat or not, whether we were taking fire or not, whether men were dying on the flight deck or not. The galley never stopped, never could stop, because sailors need to eat, and a hungry crew is a dangerous crew. I was 26 when I started. Thought cooking on a ship would be like cooking at Mama's restaurant, just bigger scale, more people. I was wrong about that, wrong about a lot of things. You can't understand what it's like until you've done it. Standing in a metal box below the waterline, temperature like an oven, ship rolling and pitching in rough seas, trying to cook breakfast for 800 men while Japanese planes are trying to sink you. Can't understand what it's like to serve meals to boys who might be dead by dinner. To watch the same faces come through the chow line day after day. Then one day they're just gone. Shot down, blown up, dead. But you keep cooking, keep serving, because that's the job. The worst day was October 30th, 1944. We were part of Task Force 38, operating off the Philippines. The Battle of Leyte Gulf had just happened. We'd been in combat operations for 2 weeks straight. I'd been up since 3 a.m. making breakfast. Powdered eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. Same thing every morning. The breakfast shift was already done, served and cleaned up. We were prepping lunch, had to get 800 meals ready by 11:30. I was in the galley with my crew. 5 of us total. Jones from Detroit, Martinez from El Paso, young kid named Patterson from somewhere in Iowa, and Washington from Georgia. Good men, hard workers. We'd developed a rhythm after months together. The galley was hot, always hot. Even with ventilation, the temperature stayed above 100 degrees. We worked in just our dungarees and skivvy shirts, soaked with sweat within minutes. I was seasoning a massive pot of beef stew, if you could call it that. Canned beef, powdered potatoes, whatever vegetables we had left. Nothing like Mama's cooking, but it was hot and filling, and that's what mattered. Then the alarm sounded. General quarters. We'd been through it dozens of times. Japanese planes incoming, everyone to battle stations. The ship would go to combat alert, hatches would seal, and we'd be locked in the galley until the attack was over. "Secure the galley," I shouted. We killed the stoves, secured loose items, made sure nothing would fly around if we took a hit. Then we waited. You could feel the ship come alive, the anti-aircraft guns opening up, the vibration through the deck, the sound of aircraft engines overhead. We weren't supposed to be at battle stations. Cooks weren't assigned to guns or damage control. We just had to wait in the galley, safe below the waterline. Safe, that's what they told us. Then the kamikaze hit. The impact shook the entire ship, knocked us off our feet. Lights flickered, the galley filled with dust and smoke. Somewhere nearby, metal was screaming. Something had broken, something bad. "Everyone okay?" I called out. "Yeah, I'm good. Little banged up, but okay." Then we heard it, screaming, coming from the other side of the bulkhead, the mess deck, right next to the galley, and smoke pouring through the ventilation. black, thick, choking. The kamikaze had hit the mess deck, the place where sailors ate, where hundreds of men gathered 3 times a day, where right now the lunch crew was setting up tables for the noon meal. Patterson tried the hatch, couldn't open it, sealed from the other side, jammed or locked down for damage control. The screaming got worse. We weren't trained for this. We were cooks, not firefighters, not damage control, not rescue. We made meals. That was our job. But men were dying on the other side of that bulkhead, and we could hear every second of it. Martinez grabbed a fire axe, started attacking the hatch, swinging with everything he had. The screaming kept getting louder, more desperate. Then it started getting quieter. That was worse. That meant men were giving up, dying. "Faster!" I shouted, grabbed another axe, both of us hammering at the hatch. The metal bent, dented, but wouldn't break. Navy hatches are built to contain damage, built to seal off sections, built to sacrifice the men in one compartment to save the rest of the ship. We were trying to undo what the hatch was designed to do. Finally, the metal gave way. We smashed through, smoke pouring into the galley. Couldn't see anything. Just black smoke and heat. Intense heat. Like opening an oven door. "Get wet towels," I shouted. "Cover your faces." We went in. The mess deck was hell. The kamikaze had torn through the side of the ship, exploded in the mess area. Metal twisted and burning. Bodies everywhere, some moving, some not. The lunch crew. Sailors who'd been setting up tables. Boys I'd served breakfast to 4 hours ago. Now they were burning, screaming, dying. We started pulling them out, dragging whoever we could reach back into the galley. Burns. God, the burns. Skin coming off in our hands. The smell. Like cooking meat. Sweet and horrible and wrong. Patterson vomited, kept working anyway. We all did. Found one kid, couldn't have been more than 18, trapped under a collapsed table, his legs crushed. He was conscious, screaming for his mother. We couldn't move the table. Too heavy, too much twisted metal. "Get help," I told Jones. "Find damage control." But Jones was already gone. Hadn't seen him leave. Just me, Martinez, Washington, and Patterson. 4 cooks trying to do the work of trained rescue teams. The fire was spreading. We couldn't stay much longer. Had to fall back or die with them. I looked at that kid trapped under the table. Looked at his eyes. He knew. Knew we couldn't save him. Knew he was going to burn. "Don't leave me," he begged. "Please don't leave me." But we had to. The fire was too much. The smoke was too thick. We'd already pulled out everyone we could reach. Staying meant dying with him. "I'm sorry," I said. Meant it. "We'll carry those words to my grave." We fell back to the galley, sealed the hatch, listened to him scream until we couldn't hear him anymore. Damage control arrived 10 minutes later. Professional teams with equipment. They put out the fire, recovered the bodies. 17 dead, 23 wounded. We sat in the galley, covered in soot and blood and worse things. Nobody talked. What was there to say? At 11:30 hours, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Secure from general quarters. Resume normal operations." Resume normal operations. We had 800 men to feed for lunch. The galley was a disaster. Half our equipment damaged. Our prep work ruined. But sailors needed to eat. So we cooked. Served sandwiches and soup, whatever we could make fast. Served them to boys with ash on their uniforms from fighting fires. Boys who'd watched friends die. They ate in silence. So did we. We kept cooking. That's what you do. The ship stays at sea. Men need to eat. You keep cooking. But it was different after that. Everything was different. I'd see sailors come through the chow line and wonder if they'd be alive tomorrow. Wonder if this meal would be their last. Started memorizing faces. names when I could learn them. Felt like I owed them that much. The Navy replaced our equipment, brought in new supplies, patched the holes in the ship, made everything look normal again. But I couldn't walk past the mess deck without seeing it, without smelling it. That sweet, horrible smell of burning meat that wasn't meat. That was men. That was boys who'd been laughing at breakfast. Patterson quit coming to the galley. Started having panic attacks. Couldn't handle the heat, the smoke from the stoves, the confined space. They transferred him to deck duty. Never saw him after that. Hope he made it home okay. The rest of us kept working. What choice did we have? The galley ran 3 shifts. I was senior cook now. My responsibility to keep it going. We fed them breakfast at 600, lunch at 1200, dinner at 1800, every single day, in calm seas and rough, in peacetime operations and combat, when we were winning and when we were losing. The menu was always the same: powdered eggs, canned meat, powdered milk, beans, rice, bread when we had flour, coffee that tasted like dirt but kept men awake. Sometimes we'd get real food, fresh vegetables when we resupplied, fresh eggs, real milk. Those were good days, made better meals. Saw sailors actually smile when they came through the line. But mostly it was canned, powdered, preserved, food designed to last, to feed an army, to keep men alive, not to make them happy, just alive. I took pride in it anyway, made the best meals I could with what I had, tried to give them something to look forward to, something normal in a world gone mad, because food isn't just fuel, it's comfort, it's home, it's Mama's cooking on Sunday, it's the smell of bacon in the morning, it's the taste of something good in a day full of bad. I couldn't give them much, but I could give them that. We kept cooking through the rest of 1944, through 1945, through more kamikaze attacks, more battles, more death. The Independence took more hits, lost more men, but the galley kept running. I stopped counting the meals, stopped counting the days, just cooked, served, cleaned up, started over. Martinez got hit by shrapnel during an attack in March 45, took it in the shoulder while carrying supplies across the hangar deck. Survived, but they sent him stateside to recover. Washington made it through the whole war. So did Jones. So did I. When the war ended in August, we were anchored off Japan, part of the occupation force. The fighting was over, but we still had to cook, still had to feed 800 men a day. The job never ends, not really. They sent us home in November 1945, mustered out at San Diego, gave us our discharge papers, our final pay, a handshake, and a thank you for our service. Just like that, I was a civilian again. I took the train back to New Orleans, watched the country roll by through the window. Farmland, small towns, cities, all of it untouched by war, clean, whole. Like the last 3 years hadn't happened. My mama met me at the station, cried when she saw me, held me tight and thanked God I was alive. "You're too thin," she said, first thing out of her mouth. "I'm gonna cook for you. Put some meat on those bones." She tried. Made all my favorites: gumbo, jambalaya, red beans and rice, beignets, the food I'd grown up with, the food I'd dreamed about in that hot galley in the Pacific. I couldn't eat it, couldn't taste anything. It was like my tongue had forgotten how food was supposed to taste. Everything was ash in my mouth. "What's wrong, baby?" Mama asked. "You don't like it?" "It's perfect, Mama. I'm just not hungry." A lie. I was starving, but I couldn't eat. Couldn't shake the feeling that every bite I took was a bite that sailor, the one trapped under the table, would never taste. That all those boys buried at sea would never have another meal. I tried to go back to work at Mama's restaurant. Lasted 2 days. The heat of the kitchen, the smell of cooking meat, the sound of pots and pans, all of it took me back to that galley, back to that mess deck, back to that kid screaming. I had a panic attack in the middle of dinner service, dropped a pot of soup, just stood there shaking, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Mama took me home, told me to rest, to take time, but time didn't help. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I couldn't cook, couldn't even go into a kitchen without feeling my chest tighten. The thing I'd done my whole life, the thing I was good at, the thing that had kept me alive during the war. I couldn't do it anymore. Started drinking instead. Not much at first, just enough to sleep, to quiet the memories. But it got worse. By 1947, I was drinking every day, lost touch with my family, lost touch with everyone. The VA tried to help, gave me some pills, told me about support groups. But how do you explain to a room full of combat veterans that you're broken because you were a cook, that you're haunted because you fed people? They wouldn't understand. Nobody would. So I kept it to myself, kept drinking, kept trying to forget that sweet, horrible smell, that kid's eyes, his voice begging me not to leave. I eventually stopped drinking, got help, got sober, got a job as a mechanic, something far away from kitchens. Met a woman named Dorothy in 1952. She was patient, kind, didn't push me to talk about the war. We got married, have 2 kids now. Good life, normal life, away from kitchens, away from cooking, away from everything that reminds me of that ship, but I can't escape it completely. It's been 15 years since the war ended. I'm 41 years old, got a wife and kids and a job I don't hate. Should be grateful, should be happy. But I can't eat in restaurants, can't handle the smell of cooking meat. Can't go to barbecues or family dinners without feeling my stomach turn. Dorothy cooks for the family. Simple meals, sandwiches, salads, things that don't require much heat or smell. She doesn't complain, doesn't ask why. She figured it out somehow, that something happened, that I can't talk about it. My kids don't understand. They see other dads grilling burgers, teaching their sons to cook. They wonder why their father won't even come in the kitchen. Daddy doesn't like cooking, Dorothy tells them, close enough to the truth. Sometimes I see other veterans, white men mostly, talking about their service, pilots and gunners and deck crew. They've got their stories, their brotherhood, their pride in what they did. Nobody asks the black sailor what he did, they assume. Steward, probably. Serving officers, not real Navy work. When they find out I was a cook, they nod politely, change the subject. Like feeding 800 men a day wasn't important, like keeping a crew fed and functioning wasn't real service. They don't know, can't know, don't want to know. I tried to tell Dorothy once, tried to explain about that day, about the kamikaze hitting the mess deck, about the kid trapped under the table. She listened, held my hand, but I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to understand, trying to sympathize, but she couldn't really grasp it. The horror, the guilt, the weight of it. Nobody can unless they were there. I still wake up sometimes smelling that smell, sweet and horrible. Still hear that kid's voice. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I left him. Had to, couldn't save him. But I left him to burn, and that's something I'll carry forever. People talk about the sacrifices of war. They mean the men who died, the heroes who gave their lives. And they should be remembered. They should be honored. But nobody talks about the ones who lived, the ones who had to keep going, who had to cook meals the next day for men who watched their friends die, who had to clean up the blood and pretend everything was normal. Nobody talks about the cook who pulled burned bodies out of a mess deck and then had to serve lunch an hour later. That's not heroic. That's not noble. That's just horror, pure horror, with no glory attached. My son asked me last week what I did in the war. He's 8 years old. learning about World War II in school. Wants to know if his daddy was a hero. I didn't know what to tell him. Didn't know how to explain that I spent the war in a galley, sweating over stoves, feeding sailors, watching them come through the line day after day until one day they didn't come anymore. I was a cook, I said, kept the crew fed. He looked disappointed, wanted something more exciting, more heroic. That's important, baby, Dorothy said. Your daddy did important work. Maybe. Maybe it was important. Maybe feeding those men mattered. Maybe it kept them going when everything else was falling apart. But it cost me. Cost me my love of cooking. Cost me my ability to smell food without seeing death. Cost me something I can't even name. Some piece of myself I left on that ship. We never came back. The ones who survived, we never came back. I'm here in New Orleans with my family, but part of me is still in that galley, still hearing alarms, still smelling smoke, still listening to that kid scream, still cooking for 800 men, still serving meals to ghosts. The galley never stops, not really. 20 years later and I'm still cooking, still serving, still trying to feed men who died before they could eat, and I always will be.